Dr. Alan Lazzara. Alan, welcome back.
Hey, Bart.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, nice to have you here. Always nice to have you here. So we're at the tail end of summer, but we've got a few, I think, maybe a few more weeks of nice weather.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hot until October.
I think so.
Yeah.
And what we're going to have, it's global warming.
Probably.
Yeah. But we wanted to talk to you today about keeping kids safe.
Sure.
In summer, it's a season of risks, isn't it?
In some ways, I mean, it depends. I think from our perspective, we see a shift from infectious disease kind of illness, where we're dealing with cough, colds, pneumonias, things like that, to more unintentional injuries or accidents that occur. And some of those, from what I've noticed, living around Jackson, and this is a more rural community, we see a lot of golf cart, UTV, ATV use, and when people are using those items more, you tend to see more injuries from them. So this is, I had a traumatologist or a trauma doctor that we worked with. She was from Arizona, and she said that she was going to write a research paper on how many golf cart injuries she saw in Jackson County, because as a county hospital, we absorb all comers, and we saw or have seen a lot of golf cart injuries. And so often it's a child about these children's ages unstrapped in, not wearing a helmet, and the cart rolls, and nobody's intending to do this, it just happens. But just like with bike safety, I think it's important to use the same kind of precautions. Helmets, car seat straps, like you saw that was an add-on you could buy. This is a Missouri Department of Health public service notice about ATVs and safety, and we see a fair number of ATV accidents, both private and at like parks that are nearby, and those injuries can be pretty substantial. It usually happens when the ATV rolls over or the ATV rolls onto the person. Of course, most of the time when they're in a recreational park, it's all the time it's required that they wear a helmet. You still see injuries even through the helmet, depending on how fast they're going.
It's a law to wear a helmet with the ATV?
I believe it's required in the recreational parks, but I don't know. Okay. It's like if I was riding around my private property, I don't think anybody would come on there and give me a ticket. But this is another big thing, is that we're seeing a lot of electric vehicles, and like we were saying before, oftentimes I think technology can leap ahead of sometimes our familiarity with the new technology or regulation around it, or people's ability to say, like, hey, we should probably be putting a helmet on my 5-year-old that's on this thing can go 20 miles an hour. But those are, I think that little bike you buy at Walmart for like $150, and they're very accessible nowadays. They're not just the Barbie or big rider like battery powered 4x4 we used to have when I was a kid that would go 2 miles an hour. These things go much faster, and so with speed comes abrupt stopping, and then that's how the trauma happens. So
I think a lot of people assume the golf cart injuries have to do with adults and alcohol.
Yeah, oftentimes we see that, but sometimes we don't. People are just driving too fast, and they can go, if you fall out of something going 15 to 20 miles an hour and whack your head correctly, myself and others have taken care of people that have lost their lives because of that. And certainly it's not as common as a car accident. We see lots of car accidents all day long, but it's because people are not helmeted and not. Who wears a seatbelt with a golf cart? Like nobody.
Nobody.
Right?
They don't come with a seatbelt.
Right. But the bigger incidents we see usually is when the golf cart's loaded up. There's a bunch of like 4 or 5 kids in it. Somebody's whipping it around, and then people start getting thrown out of the golf cart. So I think common sense definitely plays a role in preventing some of these injuries. But if you have a child on a motor vehicle, having him in a helmet is really important, because kids who wear helmets and get injured, the rates of injuries are so much lower. Kids who aren't wearing helmets, when you see blood on that CAT scan, it's very devastating, because they're going to have learning disabilities or other issues going down the line, or they may never be the same. They might be ventilator dependent down the line, and it's totally preventable.
So parents, that's on you. The kid is not going to take all the safety precautions on his own.
Yeah, I think we can lead by example. I really don't like wearing a helmet when I rollerblade around.
Well, not with that hairstyle.
Yeah, it's inside hair for sure. But my wife would make fun of me about wearing our helmets. I said, well, we have to set an example for the kids when they ride. We both like to rollerblade, which is cool again now. And the bike helmets are way cooler now too. They used to be just styrofoam white, stupid looking. Now they're super cool. And so it's a great Christmas present for the season when you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. Set the example. I've seen an awful lot of adults on bikes, but e-bikes, which I think are much more dangerous or potentially more dangerous, especially for someone that's not an experienced cyclist. They just jump on an e-bike. It's a motorcycle.
Yeah, there was some study that was done in Colorado when those little scooters that came around that you could just leave them anywhere, just swipe your card and leave them anywhere.
Yeah,
there was a study that was done in Colorado that as soon as those hit the city, there was a spike in traumatic injuries related to them. So because I think people use them and say like, well, I'm not gonna drink and drive, which is great, and nobody should do that. But then they do this, and then they're using it. It's still a motor. Anything with wheels and a motor, you should probably be putting a helmet on.
And people just leave them laying on the sidewalk, and they're a tripping hazard.
Sure, yeah. That's a secondary problem.
Okay, so we have a lot of water in Jackson County, 150 some lakes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they're obviously all sizes, but it's accessible. Everybody has an opportunity. I think, because we live here, every kid needs to learn how to swim.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page. There's a handful of things I think kids should learn growing up, and that's parent dependent, I think. But water safety, I agree, should be taught in schools. Firearm safety, I think, should be taught in schools, especially with the number of firearms that we have in our country. That every child should be able to know how to approach a firearm and get an adult if they were to see one, to not touch it, get an adult, etc. Separate topic, but we're talking more about water safety today. The number one cause of death between the ages of 1 and 4 in the United States is actually drowning.
Wow.
And I don't think most people know that. And most drownings for children these ages occur in the household, usually in a pool, 80% of the time.
Right in the backyard.
With an adult home, yeah. So it's usually because the child either scooted out or wasn't attended to, or a number of other confounding factors. But it's a horrible tragedy when anything like this happens. We've seen cases where children, I got 3 kids. I know what it's like when you got 2 of them running around, you get the other one in the bathtub, and then you walk away.
We've all been there.
You walk away for 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I walked away. And it only takes that long for a child to drown in 2 inches of water. So never supposed to leave a child unattended in a bathtub or around a pool. Anywhere, yeah. So that's a big preventative thing that we can do. And it's the second leading cause of death between the ages of 5 and 15. So it's not like it just goes away when they get out of the I can't really swim stage. But I agree with you. All 3 of my kids took swimming lessons, and now they're like fish. They can at least tread water effectively. And but when it comes to the lake situation, not only knowing how to swim, but also using personal flotation devices is really important. So these stand-up paddle boards, you see a lot of canoes and kayaks. Everybody should be wearing a personal flotation device because they save lives. I saw a drowning victim the other day who made it through and was okay, but it was very scary for him and everybody else that attended to him. And it happens,
Wow.
It happens.
Yeah, and even with lakes, we do have undertows, we have underwater currents, we have swells, we have big waves. That can all happen even in a small lake.
Yeah, Lake Michigan seems like an ocean when you're there,
Yeah.
Or Lake Superior for that matter too. Both are giant bodies of water. But like we were saying before, most of these unintentional injuries and deaths occur around the household, usually when an adult's present. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And this is, the rates have gone down over time because we're more aware of it. There's more lifeguards, there's more mandatory fencing around pools, people use personal flotation devices, but still we see young children who drown, and it's a horribly tragic event for everyone involved.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And just, even though there's fences and everything else, pool alarms, whatever, your eyes, you never take your eyes off those kids.
Yeah, especially around the water.
Yeah.
You know, so we see a lot of concerned parents come into the ED often for things like infectious disease, like this cold or this viral URI, and they have appropriate concern, great concern, no matter what number child it is. But I think the more paranoid, the more I know, the more paranoid I get. And the thing that I just rely on is that, like, the top leading causes of death or injury for children are motor vehicle collisions, firearms, drowning, and unintentional drug overdoses like opioids. So if you can prevent all those things, educate your kids about wearing their seatbelt, teach them how to be around firearms safely, teach them water safety, and teach them to, never take a pill that, they don't know where it came from, their parent didn't give them, then that's the best you can do.
Wow, and this chart, we see some of those have been going up dramatically.
Yeah, so the drug and overdose poisoning, that's predominantly related to opioid overdoses or the opioid epidemic. So this graph goes from 1999 to 2020, and it's from ages 1 to 19. So it kind of eclipses the age groups we were talking about before, which are, inherently different. A 2-year-old is inherently different than a 19-year-old. Sure. A 2-year-old's not going to be able to, obtain a firearm and get into a fight with somebody else. So it's very different. But nonetheless, those are the highest rates of mortality for our children, and those are the things that we can, I think, focus on to try and prevent, and get them a bike helmet for Christmas too.
What about the marijuana gummies? They look like candy. We've even got places that sell the stuff that they make it look like it's kids play. The place called Cookies, for example. Obviously, it's not a cute little bakery. It's marijuana.
Yeah.
Fine, it's legal in this state, but kids are able to access grabbing it.
Yeah, so that's a big topic. So there's a lot of new vices that are easily accessible to children. So I was just listening to a podcast about caffeine pouches that people are using that are 1 to 3 cups of coffee per pouch. So if you have a toddler get into that, they can get very, very sick if they swallow 1 or 2 of those. Same thing with the marijuana gummies. They look like vitamins, probiotics, candy. I know of an ER locally that used a grant to give people little lock boxes to put their cannabis in to keep it out of their child's hands. And oftentimes we see when parents come in and their kid, they look
stoned?
Yeah, they look stoned. They look kind of, the medical term is like almost like catatonic. They're sort of responsive, they're staring off, or the other end of that, when the child's really little, they're just super duper sleepy, and we have to observe them for anywhere from 6 to 24 hours before they get back to normal. The parents are always like, they're never intentionally giving this to the child. They're like, it was in the drawer. I thought it was in a Ziploc bag. My grandmother one lady's like, my grandmother gave it to me, and I left it in the kitchen drawer, and the kid got it. Like, the stories are.
Yeah, it was in a Ziploc bag. We didn't think he'd know how to open a Ziploc bag.
Yeah, so just like anything else. I think in pill safety too. There's so many different topics when it comes to raising kids. But one thing that I will sometimes get phone calls from my other family members that have kids, and they're worried about this cold or that cold, and God love them. But I'm like, listen. Your child was, built to handle this. And I had a teacher in medical school who used to say the best thing you could do for a kid is let them go to O'Hare Airport and lick the floor, because then they'll have an immune system.
Yeah.
And that was an exaggeration, but the bottom line is let your child be exposed to all these things so that they can build an immunity to it. But the things that we can prevent, the things you really have to worry about are the things we talked about before. You know, your kid's going to break their arm eventually. Somebody's going to break a leg. Somebody's going to smash their finger. That stuff, we can fix all that, but you can't fix a damaged brain when it comes to a drug overdose or a motor vehicle collision or getting thrown out of a UTV or drowning. You know, we can't fix that stuff.
And with recreational vehicles like ATVs, we've also got the big giant Winnebago type motorhomes, and I've seen them go down the road a couple of ways which I couldn't believe. One example, there was a big RV and it was towing a little car.
Okay.
And there were people in the little car.
I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can do that.
And then in other situations, you see people bouncing around inside their hand.
Sure, yeah. I don't think you're supposed to be riding around in them. But I'm not a Winnebago owner, so I don't know all the rules and regs. I just try and wear my seatbelt.
Yeah. In big Winnebago, people they're walking around like it's just parked, but it's going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fast. That would be a fast stop.
Yes. Some of these people coming back from up north, they're in such a hurry. I can't believe how fast some of those giant RVs are flying down the highway.
Yeah, speed certainly, like we said before, it's not the speed that kills, it's the rapid deceleration. So I think, if I remember correctly, the reason the speed limit was set at 55 is because that's where, back in the day when they set that national speed limit, was when the fatalities took off. Below 55, fatalities were less. Above 55, fatalities were. And cars are certainly much safer now. I mean, we know all the different safety features, but
as anyone my age will say, drivers are much worse now. And yes, we old people will say that.
I mean, I'm not. I don't know.
It's true.
I'm middle-aged, and I think somewhat similar about a lot of things.
And I think the distracted driving is the reason.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I don't think people are learning to drive like they used to. It used to be like 6-week thing. That was your summer when you were in high school. You'd do a 6-week thing. But driving distracted seems to be so common.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I witnessed somebody, and it was a distracted walker. They crossed a street.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you where it is because this is a #1 intersection for accidents. It is Washington and Jackson downtown. Someone was heading east, driving through a green light. Someone walking across the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Earbuds in,
right.
Texting, head down, and by inches missed getting hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty big gamble for something not very important.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
Yeah. But, I don't know how we're going to shift away from that from a societal standpoint, but that's kind of beyond the scope of our conversation.
Right.
A little bit. I don't know if I'm able to comment on such things.
Oh, you're qualified. You're qualified to comment because anything you say, it's your experience, or you've seen tragedy, and you can advise on how to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Are we seeing? So the kinds of injuries that you are seeing with the increases in speed, even though we've got safer vehicles, are the actual injuries different in the ER?
Well, I can't say that I know because the types of vehicles that are around now are similar to the ones when I trained, and I don't know what it looked like, 30 years ago. I know that probably vehicular fatalities were a lot higher because, cars are made out of all steel, had no airbags, just had lap belts, and the glass wasn't tempered. So I think that the vehicle fatalities were a lot higher back then, and certainly safety's gotten better. But we see a sundry of different kinds of injuries. We call it. So we have two different kinds of trauma. We have blunt trauma and penetrating trauma. Henry Ford Jackson sees, I'd say like 90% blunt trauma and 10% penetrating, which would involve like knives and guns and stuff like that. So the blunt trauma also involves like older people that fall, but encompasses all the golf cart, ATV, vehicle injuries. When we see people who have been badly injured in a car accident, typically the most devastating injuries are the head and brain injuries, because there is, we can fix a broken leg. We can put a chest tube in to reinflate a lung. They can do abdominal surgery to remove, part of a liver that's bleeding. But there's no way to replace a part of your brain. There's no way to stimulate it in such a way that gets you all of your functionality back. So in a lot of ways, it's a nature takes its course. They can do things to alleviate pressure within the skull, and they'll put monitors in. Sometimes they'll remove a piece of the skull and allow it to swell, give you anti-seizure medication, other different kinds of medications. But more often than not, people who are really badly injured in car accidents they have brain injuries. We see other things like broken ribs and ruptured spleens and things like that. But it's really devastating when people.
Certainly uncomfortable conversation, but so valuable, Alan, your experience in helping us keep our families safe, take advantage of all of these words of advice from Dr. Alan Lazzara.
Yeah, I'll say the last thing is most of the time when people come in and they're badly injured, it's usually because they're not wearing their seatbelt. Most of the time when we see that. Yeah.
There you go. Wear your seatbelt. Wear a helmet. Be careful. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
From Henry Ford Jackson Hospital Emergency Services physician, Dr. Alan Lazzara.